This is our comprehensive review of all the baby carriers for our baby carrier ergonomic review. We will run through all the categories. While you can see them here, I will point and let you know which is highest for each category. The visual is nice. And then of course you can look at each carrier's criteria individually throughout the blog, which is lovely. Here we start with the cheapest at $170, the Lily Baby. Great price point. Then we go to our next two carriers at $180, so $10 more brings you to the Wild Bird and the Tula. Next is the Happy, $190. Then we get into our more expensive carriers, the Bump Suit, which is closer to like 100 more than this. It's right in that 285 range. And then we get to the Artipop, which is $370. That's our most expensive carrier in the bunch. As far as core support goes, these were our highest scoring. This is the Wild Bird, this is the Tula, the Artipop, and the Bump Suit. Mid-range for our criteria was the Lily Baby, and the Happy Baby scored the lowest as far as core support. We're talking back support. So the carriers that scored the highest for back support, and a lot of this has to do with the cross across the back, the way that the carriers are set up, the way they go over the shoulders. That's the Wild Bird, the Artipop, and the Bump Suit. All three of them do that. So they scored the highest for back support. The Lily Baby scored mid, kind of right in between, the lowest and the highest right here. And then our lowest scorers for the back support, again, it has to do with the way the strap goes across the back, the upper back. It's this one, the Happy Baby, and the Tula. And I shouldn't just say the upper back, it's also the back strap along the back end, but I think having both and the way that they're laid out really plays into how you feel it all across your back.
As far as shoulder support goes, a lot of it had to do with that cross along the back. Although I say that, the Lily Baby does not have the cross, and it's still scored super high for shoulder support, and a lot of that has to do with the padding in the actual shoulders. So our highest scorers for shoulder support were Wild Bird, Artipop, Lily Baby, and the Bump Suit. As far as the carrier that our physical therapist who was assessing all of these based on the criteria we set, this was the only one that scored a 5+ for anything, and it was for the shoulder support. So when I was talking shoulder support, I was just talking all the carriers that scored a 5, but this one also got a plus, so just good for you to know. Mid-range, between lowest and highest, was Happy Baby. And then our lower scoring was the Tula and carrier. Obviously, it's really important to be able to get the carrier on without the help of a partner, because typically a partner isn't around. So the carriers that scored the highest in regard to getting it on by yourself were all the carriers that had the cross along the back rather than going straight across the top of the back. That's the Wild Bird, the Artipop, and the Bump Suit. The one that scored next, like kind of mid-range, was the Tula. And then the ones that scored lower were the Lily Baby and the Happy Baby. Now, there's a caveat with the Lily Baby. It had more to do with the way it came across the top, but what's really neat about the Lily Baby, and it was the only one, it has a magnetic clasp at the top. So that actually, that part of it makes it easier to get on by yourself. But again, you have to consider that the strap goes, straight across the back. To hip support for the little ones, you're looking for that M when they're in the carrier. I will start by saying that all of these carriers have been certified for hip safety, so they're all great carriers. It just, when we were assessing and going through the criteria, it had more to do with the depth and kind of how the baby was sitting comfort-wise. But again, they're all certified, they're all great. They're all super safe and wonderful for your little one. Again, it comes down to preference with a lot of this stuff and what you're seeing and even what your baby likes. So the 4 that scored the highest were the Wild Bird, the Tula, the Artipop, and the Bump Suit. Mid-range for that M, for that hip support for baby, was the Lily Baby. And then the lower on our scale was Happy. I will also add that all of these carriers are adjustable, so you are able to move it in or outward based on your baby's size. The carriers that scored all 5s throughout all of our criteria were the Wild Bird, the Artipop, and the Bump Suit. As far as core support goes, I do want to let you know that this is the only carrier that sits high up on your stomach. So as far as post C-section, post diastasis recti, anything like that, you'll just want to be mindful of that because it sits higher, but it's also why it scores really high for the actual support because of the way it sits on mom's hips or, you know, whoever is the adult's hips. This actually can be very nice because of how high it sits, but you have to be mindful of anything that you're trying to be careful of in your core.